resilience. Okay, the index like up. So yes. So Kevin, as I said, is lightning presentations, 15 minutes, and that is so. But then people can catch up with you for question and comment. But if you spare some time, then we can go. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Chege. I work for Internet Society. Those of you not familiar with ISOC, it's a global organization that works to promote the internet, and we have an open day on Friday where you can learn more about ISOC. So today I'm going to cover a project we've done at the Internet Society along with Afrinic to measure internet resilience in Africa. I'll go a bit fast, but I'm around the whole week in case you'll have any questions. So we started talking to Afrinic 2018, 2019, around that time, and wanted to collaborate to measure internet resilience in Africa. We felt there was a lot of data available on uplink speeds, downlink speeds, round trip times, and so on, all these other metrics you can understand about the internet. But we really wanted to understand, what does it mean for a country when one link goes down? Can a country survive an internet outage? Does it have redundancy to that internet? So I wanted to find out what's available, what's on the ground, what's the real internet experience in Africa. So we partnered with Afrinic in a project we call MIRA, M-I-R-A. It stands for Measuring Internet Resilience in Africa. We had two main goals. We wanted to aggregate data that was available on the internet. And the second goal was to present this data in a very easy to understand manner. So whether you are a regular network user, or you're a regulator, or you're a researcher and you want to find out what's the real internet experience, that's what we wanted to achieve with the Internet Resilience project. We call it MIRA, M-I-R-A in short. So when we started, we wanted to agree on a definition. When you say resilient internet connection, what exactly do you mean? And we came up with this sentence: a resilient internet connection is one that maintains an acceptable level of service in the face of faults and challenges to normal operation. So in this hotel, for example, let's say they have an internet connection that's active. How resilient is it? Is if their main link goes down, do they have a backup link? Is there another way to maintain connectivity to the hotel? Then we came up with what we call the Internet Resilience Index, or IRI. It is a rounded score that you can use as an indicator to understand just how good the resiliency of that country's connectivity is. We divided when we started, we had very many metrics. There are many ways you can use to determine how good or how bad your internet connection is. So we had to sort of shortlist the best, which we thought were critical to determining how good the internet connection was. And then we sorted them into four main pillars. The first pillar is infrastructure. Second pillar is performance. The third pillar is enabling technologies. And then the final pillar is local market system, local market readiness, which deals with how competitive is the market space in the country. If you're an internet user, do you have the choice to go to more than one ISP? So a country that has a more competitive ISP space, that country has a better internet resilience connection than a country that only has one ISP in the market. We did this work with, as I mentioned, ISOC and Africa. We are collaborating, but we got a lot of help at the beginning to help us with the methodology, how we're going to do the thinking around the research. We got a lot of input from University of Cape Town, Simula, and also Carnegie Mellon University. We did a white paper on the Internet Resilience Project. When you go to the Pulse website, which I'll share the links shortly, you can see how we approach this work and our thinking behind it. So as I mentioned, you have very many metrics you can use. In fact, I think our initial list, we had more than 35 metrics, which we had to narrow down so that we can have a very easy way to do this, at least at the beginning. But we decided to make it very modular. So by modular, I mean under the four pillars that I've mentioned there of performance, infrastructure, market readiness, and enabling technologies, if a new metric comes in, we can add it into one of those four key pillars. So we did start with those that you see there, but it is possible to add or shift. These were the ones which we started with because we felt the data was available and we could quickly get going and start measuring internet resilience in Africa. So we're using a lot of open data. I've mentioned some of the sources we have there. We're using data from UCLA, from PeeringDB, from ITU, and so on. So the way it works is we aggregate all that data. Under the 4 pillars, each pillar has a 25% score. And then based on the score received for each of the metrics we have under each of the key pillars, we're able to derive a rounded index for the performance of a country. So at the beginning, we had a lot of raw data. We had a lot of spreadsheets and files and so on, but we wanted to visualize it. As I mentioned, one of our main, one of the 2 key objectives we had was 1, carry out sustained measurements, but 2, present it in a very easy to understand manner. So on the ISOC platform, or one of the resources we have is what we call Pulse, that is pulse.internetsociety.org. We have a visualization for the internet resilience metrics there. You can go to pulse.internetsociety.org and you'll start seeing graphs like this, which I'm going to explain. So you can view data you can see the internet resilience score for a specific country like South Africa. You can see the internet resilience score for a sub-region, so like Southern Africa, so South Africa together with the neighboring countries. And you can do the same for other sub-regions in Africa. So the top 10 countries, I won't list all of them, but based on the measurements we have right now, based on the internet resilience scores and the 4 pillars that I've mentioned, the top country is Mauritius, followed by South Africa. Those are the top 10. I won't read all of them there. But in the slides, you'll see the list of the top 10 countries and how they score under the 4 key pillars that I've mentioned. So and then the index is an average score of the 4 key pillars that you're seeing there. So just looking at South Africa, since we're in South Africa, I've shown there a chart of the 4 key pillars and the sub-metrics under each of those 4 key pillars. And then you'll see, I've increased the font a bit there for the size of the, under each pillar, what South Africa has scored. And you can see South Africa has a rounded score of 53.4% on the internet resilience index. So comparing, I just thought I'd compare 2 countries because you can't compare 2 countries. So South Africa came in second, Mauritius came in first. The red box there, I apologize if it's not too big, but in the slides it will be clear. It shows that one of the main reasons Mauritius had a higher score in average over South Africa is because one of the metrics we consider is the fiber reach within 10 kilometers. So how is it possible to get fiber within 10 kilometers in the country? So of course, Mauritius is a smaller country, South Africa is a much bigger country. Mauritius scores much better in that particular metric. However, the other metrics to consider as well, this is just to explain to you the comparison that you can do there. And the data source for the percentage of population within 10 kilometer, which we call their fiber 10 kilometer reach, is from ITU. So all of this is open data. We're just aggregating it and then coming up with a score. This is another viewpoint you can have for the exact same data for South Africa and Mauritius. You can compare any country as I mentioned. So if you prefer this sort of spider graph, you can also get that visualization. We are working to introduce more ways to view this data on the Pulse platform as well. This is not there right now, but hopefully in the near future, it's going to be there. So we worked on Africa for the 2 years or so, so to 2020, 2021, and 2022, so about 3 years. And we got a lot of requests from outside Africa as well. They said, we like the data, we like how you've presented it, we're interested in the metrics. How can this be, made global? So the index now is global. If you go to pulse.internetsociety.org, you can see what we call the Global Internet Resilience Index. So now you can compare your country to any other country in the world. We don't have data for all the countries, but we have 476 countries, which is a big number. For the countries which we don't have enough data yet, we are not presenting it, but as more data becomes available, we will be providing that as well. So top 10, if you look at the top 10 countries globally based on the index that we have, that's the top list there, led by Iceland. I won't read out all the other countries, but this would be in the slides, and you can also go to the Pulse dashboard and see that as well. So we also thought of real-time measurements. So we were pretty confident with the index, how we've done it based with sort of old, not old data, but rather data that's been made open by other organizations. But we're also interested in real-time measurements. Would it be possible to carry out a real-time measurement for, South Africa and Mauritius or Kenya and so on, and use that to determine just how good the connectivity in a country is? So we came up with a prototype measurement infrastructure, which we called MIRA pods, M-I-R-A pods. This was to test a fleet of devices that you can use to measure your own internet connectivity. So we based this on Raspberry Pi 4s. So we distributed Raspberry Pi 4s in about 10 countries. And we had, I think, about 20 devices in total. So these devices were carrying out throughput speeds, uplink, downlink, and a couple of round trip time tests. And then we would aggregate that data and then present it. And we're using that as a prototype to see, can you manage your own real-time measurements and base it on some sort of IoT approach? Because that's exactly what these small form factor computers are. So that's our, we have all of this in the white paper, which explains our pipeline and so on. But we were able to deploy in a number of countries in Africa. We thank all our partners who helped us. I've seen a few of them in the room if you're hosting one of our devices. We're able to graph the data. So in terms of the prototype, we are happy with this. We think it's a success because we're able to deploy them and manage them. So I'll start closing with the lessons learned so far with the internet resilience measurements, because we're now about 4.5 years into this work so far. So partners help a lot. We couldn't have done all this work without the help from the partners we had. I've mentioned Afrinic, similar. We also had a lot of help from MLab as well with the measurements. And also we got a bit of input from RIPE because we wanted to run software RIPE Atlas probes on our devices. So with that, we're able to get a lot of progress going. So we thank all of our partners on that. Metrics also vary per region. So when we started with Africa. And when we started expanding this to other regions, we got requests. I'm in a country where there are a lot of natural disasters that also affects internet connectivity. Do you have a metric that can include that? So that sort of opened our eyes to the reality we have for us is very different as you move across the globe, because there are other factors that affect how stable the internet connection is going to be. As I mentioned, our prototype, we're pretty happy with it. You can do it. We got a lot of input on that. We're trying to refine it as well. And we also learned that the audience for this data is very wide. We've been approached by regulatory bodies, normal internet users, telcos. They want to use this data to make an informed decision. So the best way to use the Internet Resilience Index is to use it to make an informed decision so that you can know in this country what can be done to improve the internet. We always want to improve the internet, but you cannot improve what you don't measure. So you have to measure, and that's where the index comes in. And you can use that to make an informed decision where you can strategically say, we know we are scoring poorly in this metric. We need to find a way to improve it. Why is it that this country has a better connectivity than that country? Maybe they have a better policy that encourages more ISPs to compete, because where there are more ISPs, it means the user has more choice and also a more affordable experience when it comes to connectivity. So to use the index, use it to make an informed decision to improve your internet experience. So I'll close here with a couple of future plans. We'd like to build an interactive dashboard. When you go to the Pulse dashboard there, pulse.internetsite.org, it is a bit static. We'd like to make it dynamic where you can turn off a few things, turn on a few things. Maybe just interested in market readiness as a pillar, maybe just interested in infrastructure. So we are working on having that as a feature. Working on policy-related framework documents. So with the ATU, they approached us and we have an MOU with them. We are working on a policy-related framework documents. In fact, I'd like to thank the chair of this session here, Elaine. Elaine is helping us with those framework documents. So very soon, we hope there can be documents that can guide regulators on the key metrics or the key issues that counter or contribute to a resilient internet connection in a country. Our prototype network, if you're interested in that type of real-time measurements, do reach out to me. We're interested in expanding that. We did get a lot of feedback. I think we are very confident. We are working on a toolkit that explains exactly how you can manage your network if you want to carry out your measurements. Maybe you want to measure connectivity in your university or in your city. It is possible to do it, and we are working on a toolkit that explains all the steps and all the factors you need to consider to build your own private measurement network. And we're always refining the data you'll see on the Pulse dashboard. We'll welcome any input. And yeah, we're hoping to make more improvements as we move along. So I'd like to stop here. On this page are all the resources which you can use to join if you're interested in following the work we're doing on Pulse. Pulse, I've just mentioned one focus area we have, which is internet resilience. There are more focus areas that you can go and see there. I encourage you all to have a look at the webpage, and you can follow, get Pulse updates. We have a Twitter page, and you can get, we have active blogs as well, which we encourage you to follow and get from our newsletter. So thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. But as I said, we may not, okay, unless there is, but I see no one willing to engage. Maybe they are afraid. So I should ask them, I should then ask question. How many people have heard about the index before these presentations? So think now you had enough information, and I hope you will probably engage, because I think these things is very important when we're talking about resilience of the internet in Africa. Even though internet itself is a very complex matter, but we still do. So thank you, Kevin, and
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So our next topic is going to be it's a bit related. Cybersecurity as an internet governance challenge. Okay, I see